Hello everybody. I would like to talk to everyone about truth. Now, in order to have this talk, I'm going to have everybody agree on a precept and a promise. If you agree on the next precept I'm getting ready to say, then you have to promise me you're going to watch this entire thing to the end. Alright? Good. Alright. First of all, food is a drug. Now let me illustrate this precept that I'm working off of. A drug is any chemical found in nature that interacts with the chemicals inside your body. Therefore, everything here is a drug. This spider wort was used by the Cherokee to alleviate people that were constipated as a very effective laxative. It's also called spider wort for the fact that it can be used on spider bites. Now right over here, we've got plain old culinary sage, right? Well, another variety of sage in Missouri was made illegal that I was growing a couple years ago and had to remove it. The funny thing being, they made it illegal because it was hallucinatory. It contained a compound known as throzone. Well, the compound's in culinary sage too. So if you chew up a bunch of sage leaves after a couple days of fasting, you go on a real wild ride. Now, taking it a little bit further, these are some weeds I found in my garden. Now, it's called horse nettles or wild tomato. It contains a chemical called sildomane. This is why people who eat raw tomatoes or raw potatoes will get sick and die. If they don't eat too much, they'll go on a trip. If you rub the roots of this little thing, you'll go on a pretty wild ride on that one too. That's why Louisiana in the past 2 years has made it illegal to possess more than 10 plants. Now, what my question is that if it's made illegal in Missouri, is there some sort of like special gardening battalion that the police department will send to my yard? Because this is everywhere and I can't even reach all the stuff in the center of the bed. So it makes it a little, oh God, I digress. Let's move on. There's wild onion right there. There's a bunch of long leaf plantain in the middle. A bunch of broadleaf plantain right there. Maine grass. I'm sure everything. I know they all have chloroplast. Let's go over here. Oh, what's that? Wheat. Oh yeah, wheat. I bet it'll have the amino acids that are the building blocks of the proteins that make human life possible. Okay, so the premise is this. Food is a drug. Food is a drug. Are we all agreeing on this? Okay. If we all agree on this then, I'm going to take it just a little bit further. If you don't agree to that previous statement, I defy you to disagree with that previous statement. In fact, I defy you to not use drugs. Don't hold your breath, because that's full of drugs too. And so we get to the point of, well, not just air's full of drugs, but so is, did you hear the other day, well, there's a lot of studies done on it, where people have done research into outlawing dihydrogen monoxide, this deadly, deadly substance that helps cancers metastasize, does all kinds of nasty, nasty stuff. And in every poll and opinion thing they do about it, they find that everybody wants to outlaw it. Hell yeah, it's old boogity boogie boog. That's a scary kind of thing. Dihydrogen monoxide. Oh, water. Water. That's what dihydrogen monoxide is. It's water with a spooky name. Ooga booga. Ooga booga. And that's what brings me to my next point. What plant is missing in my garden? I've got a lot. Shoot, I haven't even identified all of them. What plant's missing? Oh, I know what's missing. The first and most cultivated plant in human history is missing. Cannabis, also known as marijuana, is the first plant cultivated by humankind. The records go back to 10,000 BC, cultivated by the ancient Chinese. In fact, the name for cannabis was ma. A very effective drug was created in ancient China called Mao Yo, which was used to perform very complex surgeries, grafting of organs, And my personal favorite was used to ease the pain of young mothers and mothers alike, and actually found to have very brilliant properties to actually prevent uteral bleeding. So that's why when we uncover many archaeological digs where cannabis is found, it's often on the body and in the cervix and the uterus area of a young woman that was bleeding to death. Now, whereas those tombs were ones that actually did bleed to death, there were literally millions of mothers that were saved by this substance. Ma, of course, was the name of cannabis. It's interesting to note that the name for mom was simply ma. So when we start looking at the fact that this is a plant that has been cultivated, the first and most cultivated plant in human existence, they're to say, well, they used it as textiles and they used it as food. And, I guess they did use it as medicines. They use it a lot as medicines. In fact, any doctor that says, marijuana's not a medicine, there's not enough information, that means that doctor doesn't understand what that little symbol on his prescription pad is. Because in ancient China, they would use the hemp stalks and draw ornate snakes going up the stalks of hemp. Of course, it was a culture that was somewhat primitive. We all were back then. And so there was a lot of demonology. They believed when someone was sick, it was demons in them. So they would put these two snakes, one of purity, one of cleanliness, and one of basically sickness, and pound it against the bed until one of two things happened. Either the person got better or they didn't. It's interesting to note, though, that cannabis had been used for clothing, had been used for food, had been used for medicine, and had been used for fuel as an oil for over 10,000 years. So we start to get to that understanding that, wait a minute, if that's found in the cornucopia of Chinese medicine, surely it's in the cornucopia of European medicine. And of course it is. In fact, cannabis was around in European medicine, well documented as far as ancient Mesopotamia, the Hebrews, all places throughout and along the Silk Road. In fact, the Associated Press came out about 2 weeks ago that a dig had been found in the Gobi Desert dating back 2600 BC. And this dig that they found was really important for one of the arguments that's always used a lot of times. Cannabis today is a lot stronger than it used to be. Well, they checked the THC levels of this stuff found in the Gobi Desert from 2600, and it was just as strong as like Colombian Sinsemilla type super chronic. So that argument isn't really a relevant argument. And when we start to look at the idea of what cannabis is, it's not only a medicine, it's a food. Not only is it a food, it's the easiest growable source of protein on the planet. It's got just as much protein as soybeans and can be grown without chemical pesticides and fertilizers. I have to just stop for a second because I'm having a little bit of an overload. I saw the other day, Barack Obama and I think it was the Pope, and they were talking about world hunger. And I just have to say, if there's a problem with world hunger, perhaps we should not persecute and prosecute people that are attempting to grow the first and most cultivated source of food on the planet Earth. The greatest source of protein that can be grown without chemical fertilizers and pesticides. So we start looking a little bit about the fact that cannabis can make all of our food. It makes, not all of our, you know what I'm saying. It makes a great abundance of protein. Cannabis makes our food. Cannabis makes our clothing. The clothing from cannabis, of course, is far superior to cotton fibers. Cannabis fibers can sometimes be 10 feet in length, whereas a cotton fiber will only be a few centimeters. So the durability of canvas, actually canvas is named after cannabis, but the durability of cannabis clothing is quite literally unsurpassed in the field of textiles we have today.